Have you ever stayed up all night thinking about the person who betrayed you? Imagining dozens of counterattacks, hundreds of ways to pay them back exactly as they did to you. We've all been there. There's a pain that can't be put into words. Only a nagging urge inside. I have to show them how wrong they were. But what if I told you that true revenge isn't about words or actions, it's about becoming untouchable? Most of us grow up believing that if someone hurts you, you have to do something to fight back. Don't let anyone walk all over you. And then we assume that revenge is a way to restore honor. A sign of strength. But guess what? That's just the knee-jerk reaction of a wounded ego, not the character of a grown man. Revenge is not about fighting back. It's not about getting angry. It's not about winning an argument or putting on a perfect show. The ultimate revenge is when you don't have to do anything at all. You simply step up to a higher plane. Living a life so bright that the people who hurt you can't bear to look at that light. Not because they're afraid of you, but because they no longer have a place in your reality. When you are silent but still shine. When you don't need to say anything but others still have to admit that you have overcome. That is the strongest revenge. That is when they whisper your name in regret, and you no longer care who they are. The truth is, every time you think about revenge, you're giving them control. The angrier you get, the more they know they're still in your head. They don't need to come back, as long as you keep your mind on them. They've won. Imagine writing your own story, but letting a side character dictate the main story. Is it worth it? Stoics don't plan revenge. They plan to live better. They don't seek to get it right. They create a life where justice is unnecessary. They build inner strength, purpose, and emotional control. And when they do, those who hurt them become footnotes in a chapter they never return to again. Ask yourself, do you want to be a person who lives to react, or a person who lives to build? You want to spend your energy on retaliation, or on going further than they ever thought you could? True revenge is not about tearing down, it's about building up. It's not about getting angry, it's about moving forward. It's not that they see you back, it's that they don't see you anymore. And that is the real victory. There's a feeling we rarely admit to, but we've all experienced it. It's that moment when you've been wronged, hurt, and a spark goes off inside you. I've got to show them some manners. The truth is, revenge feels powerful. It feels like you're taking back the initiative, reclaiming your honor, getting your own way. But that feeling, have you noticed, usually only lasts for a few minutes. And then what? There is emptiness. There is unresolved anger. There is your mind still occupied by the person you thought you had taken revenge on. You think you have regained your freedom. But in fact, you have just locked yourself once again into the emotional vortex they created in the first place. Traditional revenge is a sweet fantasy. It feels good. But it secretly steals your inner peace. Think about it. Every time you respond to someone, whether it's with words or a high-handed action, what are you doing? You're reacting. And when you react, you're letting them control you. They say something. You get angry. They act badly. You fight back. You are living out the script they wrote. Sound familiar? Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to become the one who did you the wrong." That's a message from a man who once held supreme power, but still chose to be his own master. rather than retaliate against those who opposed him. Because he understood. Reactivity is a sign of dependence. Self-control is a sign of strength. You can win an argument, but lose the battle for peace. You can successfully confront someone, but then find yourself weighed down and sleepless over what just happened. Is that really a victory? I've been in that loop before. One time, someone made up a story about me that made me angry. I wrote back a sharp, pointed response, posted it, deleted it, rewrote it, deleted it again, and I realized I wasn't doing it to regain my dignity. I was just trying to make myself feel less small in the face of other people's actions. But the more I did it, the smaller I felt. The truth is, when you retaliate, you're telling them, even unconsciously, that they still matter, that they still have the power to make you angry, and that, my friend, is you giving up control of your emotions. The strong person is not the one who responds the sharpest. The strong person is the one who does not need to respond, but still maintains his or her value. They walk away, head held high, not because they lost, but because they have overcome a game that is not worth stopping at. Revenge doesn't make you stronger. It only drags you down to the level of the person who hurt you. What really makes you different is your ability to control yourself. To be calm and don't allow anyone to interfere with your inner peace. So the next time you feel anger rising, remember, silence is sometimes the most powerful voice. And not reacting, not retaliating, is how you take back control of your life. Have you ever asked yourself, why do I react so strongly? A hurtful word, an insulting action, and instantly, your body heats up, your hands clench, your heart races, and your mind thinks only one thing: must respond. It's not that you want to be angry. It's that your body forces you to be angry. It's not your fault. It's your brain's design. In our brain, there is a part called amygdala, the response center of the survival instinct. When you are threatened, whether by a wild animal or a mean comment online, the amygdala immediately reacts. It sends a signal, danger, and immediately, your entire body enters a state of fight or flight. The problem is, the amygdala can't tell the difference between real danger and emotional danger. It only knows someone just hurt you, and so adrenaline rushes into your bloodstream. Your heart speeds up, your body readies for battle. But you're not facing a lion. You're facing a person, or worse, a mean word. And that's where the mistake begins. You react like an animal, not like a rational human being. You can be smart, brave, kind, but when you're agitated, if you're not sober, you'll act like you've never learned to control yourself. A sharp retort, an emotional response, and then a few minutes later, you're wondering, what did I just do? That is why the Stoics always emphasized, don't react immediately. Because when you react, you are no longer yourself. You are being controlled by your primal instincts. Every act of revenge, no matter how deserved, drains your mental energy. It keeps your mind fixated on the person who hurt you. It clouds your goals. It robs you of clarity in your decisions. And worse, it causes you to base your self-worth on the reactions of others. Imagine you are driving down the road. Suddenly someone standing on the side of the road throws a rock at your windshield. If you stop, get out, argue, curse, You have lost time and lost direction. But if you continue driving, holding the wheel firmly, looking straight ahead, that rock is just a moment. It does not determine your direction. True courage lies not in how well you counterattack. It lies in whether you can now if you are being controlled or not. You may be right, you may be offended, you may deserve to be defended. But if you let someone else dictate your actions, in that moment, you have lost control. The Stoics do not teach us indifference. They teach us know what deserves your energy. There are battles that only exist because you agree to participate. And there are also people who, when you stop reacting, instantly become invisible. So, the next time you find yourself wanting to explode over someone, remember, it's not you reacting. It's a primal part of you trying to survive. But you don't need to live like your predatory ancestors anymore. You can choose. Stop. Take a deep breath and stay calm. Because the master of the game is not the one who screams the loudest, but the one who didn't let anyone touch your inner peace. Imagine you're holding a hot coal in your hand. You grip it tightly, staring at the person who hurt you. You think, if they just walk by, I'll throw it, but they don't come. They don't turn around. And as you stand there, your hand starts to burn. Your skin turns red, sweat pours, and then you realize the only person who's being hurt is you. That is the true nature of revenge. You think you're holding a weapon in your hands, but in reality, you're holding onto pain like it's a precious asset. The longer you hold onto it, the more it burns you from the inside. Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "He who angers you controls you." A short statement, but a powerful one. If a single word can make you lose your temper, if a single action can throw you off balance, then your control over yourself is in the hands of someone else. And that's the scariest thing. You're no longer living by your own choices, but by reacting to others. I know what it feels like. I've held a grudge for years. A friend betrayed me. A loved one hurt me deeply. I didn't take revenge, but I didn't forgive either. I kept that fire burning inside, hoping that one day they would see, understand, regret, but it never happened. And the only one who was slowly burned was me. Until one day I read another Stoic quote, "Your silence can be as loud as thunder." That's when I understood, silence is not surrender. Silence is when you don't need to say anything. Because your maturity speaks for itself. You don't need an apology. You don't need a chance to get back at it. You just need to move on. When you become calm, deep, calm, you don't just transcend the situation. You transcend the person you were. Stoics do not live to retaliate. They live to be untouchable. They do not need to teach someone a lesson, because the lesson is already there in their calm, steady presence. And if someone has hurt you, but you are no longer angry, no longer resentful, no longer waiting, then you have won. No need to shout, no need to fight back, no need for a dramatic ending. Just walk away and leave behind a silence. A silence big enough for others to feel. A silence that makes them understand they are no longer in your world. So when you feel angry, when you want to react, remember that burning coal, and ask yourself, are you throwing it away, or are you holding on to it to be burned? Be quiet, be calm, and keep growing. That is not weakness. That is maturity. And that is the most powerful revenge, without having to do anything. There's a very simple question. But if you really sit down and face it, it can change the way you live. Are you acting from strength, or reacting from pain? I want you to think back to a recent moment when someone hurt you, maybe with a harsh word. An act of betrayal, or just a feeling of being taken for granted. What was the first thing that came to your mind? Did you want to strike back? Do something to make them remember? It's a very human reaction. But reaction isn't strength. Reaction is reflex. It's a loss of control. It's when pain controls your behavior. Power is different. Power is when you know you can retaliate, but you choose not to. Not because you're afraid, but because you're busy building your own empire. You see, revenge is something that only happens when you still care about them. But when you truly grow, when you focus on your mission, on your personal journey, on your life's purpose, those people who hurt you, they automatically disappear from your mind. There's no need to try to forget. You simply don't have the space to remember anymore. I once heard a friend say, "The best revenge is to live a life they're never invited into." And I completely agree. You don't have to scream to prove you're winning. You just have to live in a way that silences others. Truly strong people don't talk much. They don't try to be better than others. They don't need to argue to prove themselves right. They choose silence, because their silence is filled with action. They don't live to answer others. They live to answer yourself by effort, by maturity, by results. Think about the people you admire the most. Are they argumentative, or are they the ones who walk into a room and you feel their presence? Even though they don't say a word? That's the energy of a leader. And you can be that, too. So, next time you feel like you want to respond to someone, stop and ask yourself, if I am truly living my values, would I still feel the need to react? Absolutely not. Because people who are growing don't have time to look back. They're too busy building, too busy honing, too busy moving forward. And that is the most powerful statement you can make. Not by voice, but by the life you are creating. We've all been hurt. No one is immune. But what makes us different is what we turn that hurt into. You can choose to hold on to it as an excuse, to blame, to procrastinate, to stay in the victim role. Or, you can use it as fuel, to move on, to overcome, to prove that you don't need anyone's validation to be great. You don't need them to witness your journey. You don't need them to see your growth, or listen to your story and say, "I was wrong." Because really, you're not growing for them to see. You develop to let you live true to yourself. And growth is not an accident. It doesn't happen on a whim, or after a night of crying or whining. It comes from choice, every day. Want to grow? Don't wait for motivation. Create it a system of training for yourself. Get up a little earlier to read a few pages of a book. Turn off social media notifications to avoid pointless arguments. Take time to exercise to keep your body healthy and your mind clear. And most importantly, get rid of things that no longer serve your peace and purpose. I know, you might be thinking, but I'm still hurt. I haven't forgotten. And that's okay. The hurt doesn't need to be denied. It just needs to stop nurturing. You don't have to live to react. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You just live to build. Imagine you're building a house. The first brick is discipline. The second is consistency. The third is silence. Then compassion. Then understanding. Then maturity. And every day, you add another brick, quietly, without showing off, without looking at anyone. One day, that house will be big enough, beautiful enough, sturdy enough, for you to live in, and no one can enter without your permission. And the funny thing is, the people who hurt you, they will hear about you. They may see your success through someone else, but you will no longer feel any emotion about it. Not because you have become cold, but because you have no longer need them in the picture of their life. It's not revenge. That is freedom. So today, if you are feeling hurt, struggling with mixed emotions, remember this: your hurt does not define you. But how you use it will define who you become. Don't live to give back, live to build. And then, let your life be the final answer. No one ever really thought you could do it. They bet that you will fall, that you will be weak, that you will react, rage, lose yourself, just the way they are used to seeing you. But they were wrong. They did not anticipate one thing. You chose to be silent and grow. No more arguing, no more trying to explain, no need to pound on the table, argue, or fight back. You just quietly step out of the chaos and start building a new version of yourself. And that's what confuses them, because those who hurt others are often not prepared to see their victims flourish after the fall. Have you ever noticed? When you respond, they feel important. When you get angry, they think they still have influence. But when you disappear, without a word, and then come back with the stillness, a new inner strength, a more stable life, that's when you really hurt them. Not with a counterattack, but with a presence they can't reach anymore. I once heard a teacher say, sometimes the most powerful objection is to say nothing. And I realized, the rumors, the false assessments, the misunderstandings, will eventually fade away. But real development never needs justification. It speaks for itself. When you change, not to respond, but to heal. When you grow, not to prove anything, but because you know you deserve better. When you move forward, without looking back, then every lie that has ever been told about you will fall apart. Because the truth doesn't need to be defended. It just needs to be lived. You may have been misunderstood. You may have been gossiped about. You may have been judged based on an old, incomplete version of yourself. But you don't need to correct what they say. You just need to fix your life. And then one day, the very people who doubted you, hurt you, and gave you heavy prejudices, will see one thing. You not only did not fall, you become unstoppable. It is victory without an audience. It is an affirmation without words. Is the answer without being asked. True maturity is not noisy. It goes with silence. And in that very silence, you shatter every prejudice, every doubt, every lie that ever existed. No need to prove anything. Just move on. Because, sometimes, winning isn't about shouting, "I was right." It's about quietly living a life where no one can use your past mistakes to define you anymore. There is a strange moment in the journey of growing up. It is when you no longer see the need to explain anything to anyone. No more trying to clear up misunderstandings. No more wanting to say, "I'm not what you think." No more need to speak up to prove that you are living right. Because you understand. If you have to use words to convince others of your worth, then you are on the wrong stage. We grow up in a world where we are taught to present, to justify, to prove our abilities. But the reality is, real value is not in the explanation, it is in the action. I used to spend hours, even weeks, writing a letting it all out message, hoping someone would understand, hoping I would be seen as I was. But you know what happened? Nothing. Because those who choose to misunderstand you, they don't need the truth. They just need a reason to keep their prejudices alive. And I realized, every time I try to prove something, I give away power. On the contrary, when I chose to stay silent and continue to act, things began to change, not because they changed, but because I no longer need them to validate my worth. The truth is, people who are doing great things, they don't talk much. Have you ever seen an architect explain each brick when building a building? Or an artist who constantly has to describe every stroke of his brush to convince someone that the painting is beautiful? Or not, they let the work speaks. And you? Your life is your work. If someone doubts you, looks down on you, misjudges you, don't try to prove it. Be so good that they are no longer worthy of being around you. When you focus on building yourself, learning every day, living a kind life, practicing discipline, and consistently pursuing your own path, you radiate an energy that makes all doubts seem small. And the great thing is, you don't need to say anything. Your maturity, your steadfastness in attitude, your persistence in action, will speak for itself. So next time you feel like explaining, like arguing, like screaming, "I'm not what you think I am," stop it, take a deep breath, and back to the work at hand. Because true power lies not in how you react, but in how you remain silent while persisting in creating value. Don't talk, don't argue, live so that no one dares to doubt you. True power doesn't come from those who talk the most. It doesn't come from those who always have to win an argument. And it doesn't come from those who have the sharpest retorts. True power, according to the Stoics, comes from self-mastery so profound that no one can pull you out of your inner peace. You can walk into a tense room where everyone is arguing, yelling, blaming each other, and you, the only one who can keep your cool and not get caught up in the emotions, are the one who has the most influence. Why? Because you are not moved. Friend, no need to react to demonstrate strength. Your presence is enough to do that. It's a very different strategy, and a very difficult one, in a world where everyone is so easily provoked by words. Everyone is quick to anger, easy to get dragged into drama, easy to let their ego take over. But not the Stoic. Stoics are not concerned with tit for tat. They care about inner mastery. To the point, master the reaction. To not letting anyone else decide your mood or direction. I remember one time, someone publicly insulted me in front of everyone. Everyone was looking at me, waiting to see how I would react. My face was hot, my heart was pounding, and I wanted to scream, to say something back. But then I stopped. I took a deep breath. I just smiled and left the room. The next day, people don't remember what the other person said. They only remember that I said it. Unyielding. And that is the clearest sign of strength. When you don't react, you become untouchable. It's not because you're avoiding it, it's because you're too focused on the journey ahead. You don't get dragged down by the little things. You don't let other people's emotions shape your attitude. You choose silence, not because you are weak, but because you understand that not every battle is worth fighting. And when you live like that, calmly, clearly, without fighting but still moving forward, you make people pay attention. They may not agree, they may not understand, but they will respect. Because truly strong people don't need to threaten anyone. They just need appear with a strong mind, and that steadiness shook the whole space. So, if someone tries to drag you into an undeserved fight, if they provoke you, attack you, remember, the Stoic strategy is not revenge. Their strategy is to not let anyone control them. No reaction, but it is a reflection. Don't get angry, but stand out, with silence that speaks louder than any excuse. We live in a world of hidden wars, where every word, every action, every look can become a spark for an emotional reaction. And when someone hurts you, insults you, or betrays your trust, your first instinct is always, they have to pay the price. You wait for karma to come. You imagine them falling apart, regretting, or being repaid by life itself. You think they will definitely get what they pay for. But have you noticed? When you keep waiting for their demise, you are tying yourself to the past. You are not just living in pain. You are feed it every day with the expectation that it must end the way you want it to. And that's when you fall into a very subtle emotional trap. You think you're getting justice, but actually, you're giving them control over your life longer than they deserve. Stoics understand this. They do not live to wait for the universe to punish anyone. Nor do they interfere with the karmic journeys of others. Surname let go, and believe. Believe that life has its own rules. Believe that every action has consequences, even if you don't see them. And most importantly, believe that your peace is more important than any revenge. There are people who will never get the karma you expect. They will not stumble. They will not apologize. They will not realize their mistakes. But that does not mean you lose. Lose not because they have not poured. Lose is when you still standing there waiting for them to fall. While you are putting your life on hold. You know the game they're playing? It's provocation. To get you to react. To get you to lose your cool. To get you into the negative role. Then don't play anymore. Your retreat is your victory. When you leave the board, the game is over. When you are silent, the confrontation loses its weight. Not everything that makes you uncomfortable deserves your reaction. Not everything that makes you angry requires you to speak up. Sometimes the wisest choice is not to confront, but to go ahead. I used to wait for justice from the people who hurt me. But the longer I waited, the more exhausted I became. Only when I let go, really let go, did I feel relief. I don't know what will happen to them, but I know what is happening to me. Free. Freedom from pain. Freedom from anger. Freedom from expectations that never come. That is the most profound lesson from Stoic philosophy. You don't need revenge. You just need to let go and move on. The universe will do the rest. Forgiveness. 2 simple words. But one of the greatest challenges a human being ever faces. Because when someone hurts you, betrays your trust, makes you fall without a word of apology, forgiveness is not easy. But today, I want you to look at forgiveness from a different perspective. It's not an act of weakness. It's not giving in. It's not opening the door for the hurt to come back, but is the most decisive step to free yourself from the burden they leave behind. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is when you remember, but you no longer let that wound control my thoughts. You don't pretend it never hurt. You don't deny the past. You simply choose to don't let it bind your present one day longer. I carried a grudge for many years. No one sees it, but I feel it in every decision, every relationship, every look. I thought if I let go, it meant they won. That I was weak. But as it turns out, I was wrong. No forgiveness. No make me stronger. It just keeps me prolonging the pain that I could have let go of long ago. And then one day, I heard a very simple saying. Forgive not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free. At that moment, I understood. Forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. They may not apologize. They may not change. They may never understand the pain they have caused. But that doesn't matter anymore. Important is you no longer want to drag them along on your journey ahead. Forgiveness is an internal decision. No statement needed. No meeting required. Just a moment of honesty where you look at yourself and say, I choose to move forward. Because I have suffered enough. Don't get me wrong. Forgiving doesn't mean giving them another chance. You can forgive and still keep boundaries. You can forgive and never speak to them again. Forgiveness does not say, I am okay with what you did. Forgiveness says, I don't let what you do control me anymore. So if you are carrying some resentment in your heart, ask yourself, is it protecting you, or is it imprisoning you? Are you living, or are you reliving old wounds every day? Forgiveness is not easy, but it is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Not for the one who hurt you, but for the version of you, waiting to move on. No longer bound by the past stagnation. Forgive not because they deserve it. Forgiveness is because you deserve peace. Because amidst all the arguing, the harsh words, the emotional reactions, and the battles you never wanted to fight, you begin to realize one thing. Inner peace never comes from changing others. It comes when you decide to stop. Stop being so stiff in your reaction. Stop trying to prove who is right and who is wrong. Stop replaying conversations in your head where you always lose just because you're still around. You know they're still there, stuck in a cycle of drama. Control, manipulation, pretending not to know what happened. They can continue to talk, continue to role play, continue to act out in their own minds. But you are different. You have chosen a new path. A journey that they no longer deep enough to follow. And that is real victory. You don't get revenge by fighting back. You take revenge with way to overcome. Not to let them see you succeed. Not to give them regrets when they look back. Not for someone to acknowledge you. But because you no longer want to live in the shadow of the past. You act today, not in retaliation, but to prove to myself that I'm grown, I've learned my lesson, and I deserve a fresh start. The healing journey is not a performance. It doesn't need other people's encouragement. It just needs you keep going, even though no one witnessed it. And then, one day, you realize that you have gone so far that the name that used to keep you up at night now holds no weight. The story that once made you cry is now just a chapter past. The wound that once brought you down is now where you learn to stand up. You win. Not because they fell, not because of karma, but because you have chosen to leave the game. You chose to build a life they couldn't touch, not with fences, but with stature, by self-control, by faith, with the will to constantly develop. If you are listening to this and feel your heart touched, then perhaps it's time to put down all the resentment, all the unsaid words, all the dreams of revenge, and start building, not for the past, but for the future you deserve. For real revenge, there is no need for revenge anymore. Fire, if you're listening to these words and feeling something awaken in your heart, don't let this video just be an inspirational moment. Make it aerial move. Speech balloon, share your story below. How long have you been carrying around a grudge without even realizing it? Have you ever chosen to stay silent and move on, instead of retaliating? Your comment, John, gives strength to someone in need. Thumbs up if this video touches your heart. Don't forget to click like. Share to someone you know who is stuck in pain. They may need to hear these words now more than ever. Bell, and if you want to continue your journey to becoming a stronger, calmer, and more self-reliant version of yourself every day, please click subscribe to channel. Turn on the bell to not miss any videos. Pushpin, revenge does not make you win. Overcoming, silence and maturity. That is the ultimate counterattack of a truly free soul. Start today.